visual fidelity that they exhibit in the final finished game. This game has 7 enemy types, of which we will most certainly implement at least 3 of them. It has pinwheels. Pinwheels are the most basic enemies, which are shown here in the lower left corner. They are, in a sense, they're like our dumb green zombies from the last game. They just move towards your player. They're not really fast. They don't have any strategic elements to their intelligence. They just keep coming after you at a very slow pace. Diamonds. This little blue guy here is also shown. This is a diamond. Now, diamonds are similar to pinwheels, but they have this behavior that A, they move a little bit faster. B, they like to work in teams, so they gang up on you, whereas pinwheels are usually free-floating and they come one by one. Diamonds will generally be generated in groups of 1 to 3, perhaps more. Green squares are similar to diamonds, but they have an additional artificial intelligence capability. When you fire at them, they will dodge your bullets depending on the angle of attack. So if you directly fire at them, they don't dodge those bullets. But if you fire at an offset, they will dodge that shot. So you have to be extremely accurate when you're shooting at these, otherwise you'll miss them. Pink boxes, which I haven't shown here, as I didn't show the green squares. Pink boxes are sort of like diamonds, except that they move significantly faster, and when you destroy them, they spawn 2 more smaller diamonds, which then give chase. And different versions of the game, some versions they spawn 2, some they spawn 3. Then there's snakes, which I'll show in a minute. Snakes are what you would imagine. They're a headpiece with a tail, and their key feature is that touching any part of the snake kills you. But the only way to kill a snake is to shoot it in the head. Shooting the body doesn't do any damage to the snake. And the way they move around on the screen, their bodies are usually blocking the head, so you have to get really creative in your approach to these things so you can take them out. Jacks, to be honest, I'm not very good. I'm not very good at this game. I have not gotten so far as to encounter jacks. So personally, in my own gameplay, I've never gotten so far as to encounter them. But as I read about them, they are basically, again, like diamonds, but there are many, many, many of them, and they are very fast, and they will ambush you. And then finally, there are Packmen, which strangely enough I have encountered, which are very similar to your player. So here down in the bottom of the screen is a picture of your player, and off to the right is a Packman. It's basically you, but the enemy. And they don't shoot at you, and they move like you, but they're a little bit slower in turning, and they have a shield in front of them. So you cannot destroy these things head on. You have to find a way to get behind them and shoot them that way, or you have to use one of the only other element in the game, which is the black holes, which I'll talk about in a moment. One thing we're going to do in this game is we'll talk about the AIs individually, and we're going to break them out into modules. So last time around, we had enemy creators for each enemy type, but this time what I want to do is have one unified enemy builder, and then I will insert, because the brain code, the thinking code for these is going to be a little bit longer than last time, I will separate out the brains for each one into individual modules, so it'll be very easy for people to look at them and to copy them and sort of like manipulate them and make modified versions of these, what I call brains. Let's see, spawning. Another thing about this game, besides the graphical intensity of it, that I haven't been able to figure out is their spawning methodology. Now, if you play this game, what you'll notice is that the spawning of enemies changes over time. It becomes what I would like to call strategic. The game knows where you're at. It sort of thinks ahead of where you're going to be, and it may place enemies in your path or someplace that is going to be really difficult for you to deal with. Like you're in a corner, and then you are suddenly surrounded by enemies both behind and in front. So it knows that you can't get away easily, so that's where it places them. But it has a bunch of other spawning features too. Unfortunately, unless I have a lot more time to play this game and observe it and break it down, I'm just going to have to stick with it, to what I call quadrant-based spawning. So in quadrant-based spawning, what will occur is the game will detect if you're in the upper left corner of the playfield, upper right corner, lower right corner, or lower left. And if you are in, for example, the upper left corner, it will be allowed to spawn enemies in any of the other 3 quadrants, somewhere randomly within the boundaries of those quadrants. And the reason I want to do it this way is, 1, it's easy to implement. 2, one of the things you have to be cautious about when you're spawning enemies in a game is not to spawn the enemy directly on top of the player. Meanwhile, you may also be following certain rules, like can't spawn enemies outside of the game board, etc., etc. So if we can define smaller portions of the game world or the board where it's okay to spawn enemies and mark them as can spawn here, then we've solved all of our problems. So for example, again, upper left quadrant is off limits, but you've got 3 other quadrants where you could spawn an enemy. Choose one randomly, and then choose within the boundaries of that quadrant and spawn an enemy, and you know that it won't be on top of the player, it will still be in the game.